There we go.
Hey guys. And let me know because I have a wealth of information, and so if there's I work well if you have a question or if you want to know something more or elaborate on something, please let me know. So I I came into healing. I always say it was like a necessity. And because I had my NDE in 1999, and that is one of I think, because you guys are a part of a spiritual community. I think I like to anchor into that. My NDE really showed me that death is an illusion, and that our true selves are these this consciousness that is more than a physical body, and we're having this human experience, um, right now. And the other aspect of my NDE that really anchored into my heart was that this vibration of unconditional love of creation is the fabric that connects us all, and it's really the essence of who we are. And part of having a spiritual awakening is is coming into contact with that divine intuitive truth that speaks to our hearts. And when you're going through a spiritual awakening, your conditioning, or all that you've been programmed, or all that you thought you were or the world is, just kinds of falls apart or gets altered in some way through an experience. And that can be very destabilizing, to have a spiritual awakening experience, because your whole perception shifts, or there's just your different psychic centers open up, but you're still living your life. Or like me, I was declared dead, but I was in the hospital in and out for about 2.5 years, and I had like multiple orthopedic surgeries. After my near-death experience, I was very aware of other dimensions, very connected to the other side. And I very well knew that I should not talk about it, um, because my parents are physicians, and aren't very spiritual. So I had all of these different feelings, openings, somatic, and then also just intuitive insights that were bubbling up. And but I was young. I was 15 when this happened. And then I also had a ton of trauma with that spiritual experience. Um, but when I was outside my body, and I decided to come back down, back to this life, that divine said, bring this energy of the energy of unconditional love, um, back to yourself and anchor it into earth. And I kind of was like, okay, like, how can you send me a manual on how to do that? Right. Um, so, but what that my near-death experience showed me is the power, of the truth of who we are and the essence, and also, how can I love myself more, and how can I love others more, and what does that even look like? But because the context of my spiritual awakening was a violent act and was a traumatic event, then I had this awakening, but then I had layered other stuff, trauma. And so my background is I got my undergrad, I got my master's, my doctorate in Chinese medicine. I also started doing Reiki at like 19, started teaching that. And so I've just evolved. I think my goal as a healer and a teacher is just to find the most effective, efficient ways to help people heal. Because as someone who's spent decades in chronic pain, I really do feel like uh, a passion for making healing and life more compassionate, more loving, and less suffering. If we can create systems and techniques and ways to do that, I think I suffered a lot because I wasn't given the right guidance or the right technique or the right expertise to move me along my path. And I really do see that you know, I live in the States. I see that in the States, healthcare and physical and like the mental health care is really fragmented and a lot of people are just kind of stuck in suffering. And I I really believe that our essence is joy and love. And of course, yes, there is a whole continuum of what life is about and all of the different experiences, but um I I really I I really believe that it is healers, doctors, teachers to help alleviate people's suffering and help them to find their path in health and in all areas of their life. Um, and I came to Theta Healing when I felt like I was hitting a kind of a wall in my own healing. And I'd had a yoga practice for 13 years. I had been in various personal development, meditative groups. I had done several like tantric kundalini meditation. So I was already, very steeped in all of these different healing modalities, had a healing lifestyle. And I kind of felt like I was just kind of circling around the same stuff. And I just was asked, the divine, I'm like, guide me. Okay, I surrender. I need to go to the next level of, depth or of healing. And that's when I found Theta Healing. And I took my first class and I was in California and I was like, I felt that I was back on, like, in the vibration of my near-death experience. And I didn't even read the book. Viana created Theta Healing. She's, my teacher, been, she's written books. She started this in, I think, 1999, around when I had my near-death experience. And it is a trademarked healing technology that uses creator, or in Theta Healing terms, the seventh plane, which is the energy of the divine, to find the root cause of, mental, emotional, or physical blocks. And they do a healing on the subconscious to release those. And so this in Theta Healing is called belief work, and it is a big staple of what we do in classes and then on one-on-ones. And this is, I think, for me, was really significant because on one hand, I had had this spiritual awakening experience, this death experience, where there's all of this esoteric, or this very visceral feeling of just light and understanding, all these downloads of, what life is about, seeing past lives. I mean, I hadn't even heard of a past life. I was raised Catholic in the middle of the United States. I'd never been exposed to past lives. And all of a sudden I had that experience. Um, and I came back, and there's a lot of near-death stories that said, oh, then they're just blissed out. Well, I felt like I came back and there was all of this trauma. And having that enlightening, awakening experience didn't heal like it healed a lot. It healed my fear of death. It healed my fear of suffering, or fear that, it really erased a lot of fears that most humans have, but it didn't translate into healing just like the violence or also the programming or the trauma from those past lives. So the belief work in theta healing was, I have to credit so much of my deep physical and emotional healing, but mostly just like that emotional integration effect. And to really facilitate healing. And I was talking to someone, I think it was last night, and we talk about healing, but like what is the definition of healing for us? And I think it's different for everyone. But like my definition of healing was to not be in a chronic, you know, stress response. And I didn't realize, even doing a daily yoga practice, doing all of these things, because of this unprocessed trauma from my childhood, I still was in a chronic stress state. Um, and slightly, I wasn't really grounded in my root chakra. And that's because there's all of these kind of like the evidence of the trauma. It was like imprinted energetically in my chakras and then also just like in my cells, because our body uh really remembers what has happened to us, and there's a lot of resistance to let it go because of our brain is kind of programmed for survival. And so we're just in a very interesting time in human history where things that would have killed people, hundreds of years ago, medical science is healing them. But, um, a lot of people are wounded or incapacitated or kind of stuck for long areas of time because most people don't understand how to work with the subconscious, and how effective that is in just really integrating different aspects of us after a trauma or even like a spiritual awakening experience. And also also dealing with any conditioning around being our authentic self, right? So all of us were conditioned or programmed through our education system, through our religion, through our early childhood, and that has, it's not good or bad, but we all have it. And then forgot what famous was it Young that says that then it's like then midlife is just kind of like figuring out and healing, what happened in childhood. But I really do think that a lot of people, that the subconscious is now it's getting more people are talking about it, but it is really a gateway to really help you integrate different aspects of yourself and also shift certain belief programs or systems that are causing issues in your life, right? And so some of these things can just be that just fear that you have to clear, or just identity things that are going on. Or it could be literal trauma, like in my case, where my body and energetically, like my body just had that vibration of fear and violence. And that unfortunately blocked me from living like my highest, my soul essence. So, I had this, my soul felt enlightened and I understood, but I was in this human body that had been violated, had in so many different ways. And then I also had that medical trauma on top of that. So I mostly work with women that have unprocessed trauma. I do work with men, but what I've and I actually have gotten a couple male clients in the past month, which I feel like is great because I feel men and women, we all need help, especially evolving, but also shifting any trauma. And so I work mostly with females that have unprocessed emotional, sexual, or physical trauma. And what does that look like? That looks like, um, they're ruminating or I always call it the trauma spiral. Their brain just won't stop thinking. And that's usually, it's not a lack of will or that they are not committed enough to their healing or their yoga practice. Like I said, I had a 10-year practice and my brain was still like that. Only after a 90-minute class would my brain stop. And then, so it was very intermittent. And so when Theta came into my life, just things started to just heal very quickly. And then through that integration process, then more of my psychic senses could come online, but also being really grounded in like my root and my sacral chakra. So that's just like my favorite thing to do is just to facilitate people's healings and where they're blocked. And um and because I really do feel like that, yes, life can be challenging and suffering can be a part of it. I do think that, this healing technology is really a way to just free ourselves up from our own programming, our own fears, or even society's fears. Um, are just also like in our DNA, we have some ancestral trauma. So, Theta Healing, I work with one-on-ones, but I also do classes where it's just really letting go of, you know, a lot of our belief systems that are outdated, or a lot of our belief systems that are mostly running our subconscious and our emotional brain were really formulated from like 0 to 6. And so a lot of adults think that they're making conscious choices in the world, but really what's running their brain and their life is this programming that happened really early on. And that's why, like, sometimes counseling or talking or intellectually knowing about something doesn't change something. Of course, awareness is like a huge part of change because you can't change what you're not aware of. But what I see when I look at like myself, because I'm my biggest case study, or my clients, is usually there's something that's going on and they don't know why it's happening, or there's something that's happening or manifesting in their physical body, whether that's physical pain or emotional strain, or like externally they're pulling in certain patterns of people, relationships. And so you see that, like, they shift something, but then they keep on repeating it, and some people don't understand. But if you look at it from a framework, from a subconscious framework, that our brain is like, the supercomputer operating system, and we have operating systems that we work on, and um you have to work with that. And a lot of that is false information. Like, for example, because I like examples, because you can talk all theory, but like, let's bring it down to earth. Like, so for example, one of the things, a lot of times we have these erroneous belief systems that have zero truth in reality. However, they're still operating, right? Like a virus on your computer. So for example, like, my older sister had childhood cancer when I was 6, and my mom pretty much like lived at the hospital for like 9 months. And even though that's just life, I think some people are like, well, I didn't have trauma. My parents, meant good, but they just worked 3 jobs. That's fine, but like, your little child brain didn't understand that. And so there's just these programs that aren't even rooted in truth. And probably your intellectual brain probably knows it, but it still is running. And so that is an issue because the if that is running your emotional or your mental system, then it's going to kind of um, create blockages, mental, emotional relationship, and it'll cause also sometimes health issues or emotional dysregulation. So I think theta for me, yoga, meditation, and healthy lifestyle was a very great base. And I mean, I daily. With that said, with theta, it got to really look into why I was having this repetitive like issue or what was going on with this pain, and really finding the energetic reason, the subconscious programming, and releasing it not just from my physical body, but from my emotional and like the subtle bodies. And I don't know how many of you guys have like any clairvoyance or clairescence, but those tools, you know, I feel everyone has the clairs. I think we've just shut them down in society, or they haven't been developed. But I definitely had it when I was younger, and then the near-death experience really opened that up too. And so when I like would look at a client or a student, you energetically scan, and I could see, well, in theta healing we connect to the divine and just ask like, why is this person having this, or give me a reading of this person. And what I would find is with a lot of women that I work with, is their traumas, it's like there's an imprint in their root chakra or their sacral. Or also I would see just women internalizing cultural programming, right, on their sexuality. So I would see in the microcosm of this person just kind of like a little, blockage or war that was going on between belief systems, right? And so that over time will cause, as you guys know, that energetic or mental will then eventually cause a physical issue if it's not addressed. What I think is really amazing about my experience in theta healing, and then my vast experience in, well, decades in medicine, me being a patient, but then also working in private practice, working in hospitals and integrative settings. I think that there is a huge opening of consciousness in this time and space now. And that, I mean, I've been talking about this for a long, since, 99, but just only recently, I really feel like there's been just like a real big opening more on a bigger collective level. Um, but uh, things that like I've healed with theta healing. I had my knee was bone on bone because I had a failed stem cell shot that went septic. And so it ate away all the cartilage. And doctors were saying that I would have to have a knee replacement. And I've been through over, I was like 4, I think it was 14 surgeries. I was like, I do not want to get another surgery. And with theta healing, you know, I look at the body as a reflection. It is a reflection of our programming, also of our spirit. And with the knees, it's like fear and moving forward. And so after I did a lot of healing, I was around 6 or 8 months daily, because I always healed myself daily. I finally cleared like the a bottom belief that I had in my system that was holding the pain in there. And the bottom belief, or the belief that I had, was it was a soul level belief that I had to be in pain in order to be on my soul mission. And so a lot of times our beliefs, and that was actually kind of true, because the whole near-death experience kind of opened me up to my soul mission, and I always was in pain. So a lot of times our brain just wants to stay in the same programming because that's what it knows. But with Theta Healing, we can reprogram and download and declare what we want to be operating in our operating system or in our microcosm of our body, and consciously create, our internal experience. And then also that also affects vibrationally what we bring, with our relationships as well. Because as we change, as you guys know, as we change our perception of, and as we heal deep, like traumas, a lot of people's traumas they don't even know about. That's how deep in the subconscious that they are. Once you heal that, like I, as a clinician, as a teacher and as a healer, see people's light up, and I feel like all of their energy centers integrating, which to me just makes me so happy, because I know health is balance, and it's also that inner communication with, whoops, I don't know, my phone. Um, with the inner communication with all of your chakras, and all, within Chinese medicine, it's the balance between all of the meridians. So um, we can have blocks for many different reasons. And then there's the symptoms of, dis-ease, which is pain, emotion that can be in the physical, the mental, the emotional. But it's all connected. And um, that's what we do. So I did heal my knee, and I was pain free from that. So I really do feel that we have even belief systems around our healing. Like as I'm talking, maybe your belief systems are kind of popping up and be like, well, I don't know. Do I believe that she can heal her knee through, this energetic technique? Or, oh, that would work for someone else, but not me. So, we are more than our belief systems, right? Um, or at least that's my belief, or my knowing from my NDE, that like that my soul and everyone's essence is so much beyond belief systems, but we're in this reality where there are belief systems and we do operate. And a lot of times our belief systems, even internally, may be at odds with each other. So it's not uncommon that I work with a woman and she loves herself, but then she loves herself no. So there's love and there's self-hatred in the same operating system. And that's fine. But then how does that impact that person? Well, when a person's at war with themselves, or their belief systems are at war, then it's creating inflammation, tension. They may hesitate in doing things that are good for them. So really, when you heal at the root level, at the subconscious, and the elect like uh the like the the energetic systems, then that gets to vibrate backwards and forward. And so, I really do challenge some of the concepts in Western medicine, because that's, the family I grew up in, that physical pain is because of a physical issue. That can be true, but then how then I could have healed a physical issue through energetic work. So I think, certain belief systems, even in Western medicine, where my family is operating from, they're like, that's impossible. You can't, your your knee was bone on bone. There's no way you could be pain free. I'm like, well, that's your belief system. But with theta healing, how it's different than other subconscious, there's a lot of different modalities, is that it is separated the subconscious in four different levels. So the core level, which is this life, the genetic level, which is our seven generations backwards, the historic level, which is past lives and also collective consciousness, so group think, and then also our soul. So in the States, I did several trainings before finding theta healing that worked with the subconscious, but it was just like one level. And theta healing really spoke to me because I had had a lived experience where I was without my body, without my programming, and I was just in my essence of my soul. And and also, and then my soul came back into this physical body. And each of our physical bodies, guys, we have different DNA and different memories and ancestral trauma. And ancestral trauma has now been like pretty much proven in science with, animal studies, and then also so anecdotal stories, studies, that, if there's a trauma with an ancestor, that can be passed down through, they displayed this through mice where, two generations later, they don't even understand why this certain stimulus makes them, scared, or, they have a reaction to, but it was because their like grandparent, had a shock or a pain with that. So, yeah, I think with theta healing is really beautiful because it kind of like yoga, it is a system of uh accessing your own wisdom and getting more alignment with your truth and living in a higher and better way. And also it is a technique that is used with people who don't have to be following that path, but you can really help them shift. So I'll give an example. So for example, one of my friends in Missouri, like they're like, oh, that's Allison, I've always been doing my own thing, never really asked permission, or a lot of people that I grew up with that didn't really know what I was talking about because I was talking about this stuff, 20 years ago. Um, but one of my friends who was like, "Oh, we love Allison, but I don't know really what she does." I sensed that something was wrong with her, and I did a session on her, and it was clearing the grief because someone had died that was very close to her. It was an old relationship, and she had all of this grief, and so we did a whole clearing. Um, so this person had passed over, and so we just did a whole clearing on their relationship. And just because your relationship ends with someone doesn't mean that you've cleared or emotionally healed from them. And so we did that, and she was like, "What was that?" That she's like, "I feel so much better." And she's like, "You literally saved me 4 years of going to counseling for this." And I was like, "You're welcome." I don't think I think talking about things is really helpful. And there's some kind of like because that is I think it's the first level of healing, of understanding, but then there's really like going in there and cleaning up what is causing the suffering, what is causing the distress on an energetic level, and then just being done with it. And I really think that I had some people from their own belief systems say to me, "Allison, you're going to be hurting the rest of your life. You're going to be in pain the rest of your life. or, certain people would allude that I would never get over, or I would always be somewhat traumatized from what had happened to me. And maybe they were doing that in a way because there was a lot put on me, and a lot of humans have had a lot of trauma or stress. And also, what is also traumatic is also neglect that I see in my practice. So I define neglect of someone of what wasn't there, when your parents didn't really see, hear, or understand you, or no one showed up for you. And so sometimes neglect can be almost worse because people are in such denial of that. And so they neglect themselves, so they don't even know what they don't know, that they don't even understand that from a deep, like, kind of neuroscience relationship, what that true attachment love is, from childhood. So I see that as well. Um, but yeah, like, any questions or anything? Wait, if I was. uh,
Do you want me to stop the recording and for us to have some questions and discussion,
Oh, yeah.
or
Yeah, if you guys want me to, like, if you guys have a question that you want me to elaborate on anything, um, you know, and then we can, if you guys want to turn off the recording for more personal, or if there was anything that I said that Joe.
Yeah, I'm just curious if someone to be a healer using the Theta Healing, do they have to have gone through such experiences that you has? And I also read Vanya's book, and I mean her background too was also, amazing in healing on her own and developed that. Can you teach this to other people easily,
Yeah.
or is
Oh,
there a
oh,
certain,
oh yeah.
prerequisite in their background?
No, no, I always say that, you know, all of us have this, and, you know, no one has to, you don't have to have a near-death experience. You just have to have a willingness to like learn. And the process of the Theta Healing curriculum, it's all live classes, and it's a experiential type of healing, and it's actually a very simple process. And that's what I love about Theta Healing. It's very simple. It actually drives, sometimes, like, people that more lean on their mental capacities. It kind of scares them because it really teaches you to, like, go inward. But the curriculum of Theta Healing has been developing for the past since 99, and they've tweaked it and expanded it over, the several decades. And so there is a process to go through, and everyone if you're, usually I say you have to have, like, a belief or some belief in, like, some that divine or something greater. But anyone can do this and go through it. And I really do feel like, um near deathers, we usually have, like, clairs and they're blown up, but I think that's the norm. I think when we are healed, because that is like a part of our divine birthright, to have all of, first of all, to be in touch with the divine within, and also to use that intelligence to heal ourselves and also to guide our life, right? And and also to, like, reclaim our sovereignty. But it is, I always tell, I think I was the most nervous in my first, like, four classes, because right when you guys step into a healing space, um, your subconscious, and I don't know if you guys have felt this, I don't know, before, meditations, like, or like retreats, sometimes your subconscious brings up old stuff in order to heal. What's the problem? Well, it's not really a problem. It's just what happens. The thing is that some people come up and they're like, "Oh, I don't feel good enough." Because it's vulnerable to be a beginner. What if I don't get it? What if you know, I don't know, all of the different fears that people do. Um, and then they're like, oh, I can't do it. Oh, I can't be away from my kids for the weekend. So usually the process of going through classes brings up everyone's blocks, right? The blocks are there. Usually, what comes up before class is already blocking you in your everyday, right? Um, and also it's interesting. I had one client who was like, oh my gosh, after like the first day, she had all this resentment coming up with her husband. And I was like, oh, great. Because my belief system is in order to heal it, someone keeps on calling me, it has to come up. But I think a lot of us run from, or we've been conditioned to run from our fears, or we just go in we just choose the old program. And I was like, oh, great, we have resentment, we can heal it. But she was like, I don't know if I want to heal the resentment. And I was like, well, that's interesting because it's serving you in some way. So I think, yes, anyone can do it. And we have class starting October 17th if anyone wants to join. But I usually do the first 4 classes twice a year. And then I have my advanced training in the summers and then like throughout the year. And so I really do, though, feel like this is the next evolution step in humanity to really reclaim um these our intuition. I know in the West, that's been poo-pooed, or that has been, oh, that's not real. But it's kind of cool because like neuroscience, and I kind of feel like in the States more science and spirituality is coming back together. And but theta is great because we all need that, the safe spaces and a process to lead us through it. And so it's been tried and tested for a while. And it's really fun. We have fun. Sometimes people like I sometimes feel like when I talk about like trauma healing, I get like the deer in the headlights, with people. They're like, oh, don't bring up, you know, and I'm like, no, no, no. We heal it and we release it. But I think with trauma and like the fear, shame, anything that, that has really hurt us, sometimes we just try to hide it or, put it over in a corner rather than directly address it. And, we all, I think one of the lies the Joe tells us is like, you're the only human that's going through this, or you should know how to heal this yourself, or there's all of these different, and I call that like the shame voice, because I think to be human is to be somewhat wounded. I don't think anyone gets out or through life without some wounding. And I love, like that Rumi quote is, the wound is like, it's like the entry point. It's where the light is. It's like really where we find ourselves. Um, and yeah, so we have fun. They're live, they're Zoom, the first 4 classes are on like weekends. And it's very practical, and you also get energetic downloads. In the advanced, you get like 700 downloads. And if you guys want to do like, I could do a group clearing or just some downloads so you guys can like experience it, because I mean, Joe knows I like love talking about this. I love it. I love talking about consciousness healing, but then there's the talking and then there's the receiving and the actual like allowing of it, the activations, the energetic activations. But a lot of times with some people, they just, they don't know what it feels like to be loved fully. They don't know what it feels like to be safe. I think for women, as a victim of violence, and as a woman, there is an epidemic of women who are in fear, and because there are threats, but also because a lot of women haven't resolved past trauma, and the female body, we're more sensitive to fear in that way. And so that's one of my favorite things, to help women just clear that, because I want it's hard to live your best life when, you're having nightmares, or when you're scared to walk down the street because, your body is still remembering a past trauma that wasn't your fault, right?
Can I ask, is the idea that a person trains to then be able to apply it to themselves?
Yep.
So, or is it you kind of go to see the doctor? So, I could come and see you, and you would do a thing on me that would heal me, or is it kind of both those things?
Both of those things.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's both those things, it's because it's like, I have a lot of clients that are healers, and, because the more I think we're getting outside of the intellectualism, because there's a difference between intellectualism and like embodiment and energetic embodiment, of the wisdom. And I think we know that intuitively, when someone has just, head knowledge versus embodied wisdom that's like through their body, and it's integrated in their whole beingness. And so Theta Healing curriculum, I have students in there that they're just doing it for their own healing. Part of the Theta Healing classes is learning how to do it for others. But I heavily focus on the self-healing, because it is such a tool when you're stuck, or when you realize you're in an old thought pattern or pattern of perceiving. You can drop into meditation and clear it and get relief just like that. So, but I have a lot of people who have a specific, you know, um, back pain. I have a client, she's in a whole different industry, had back pain, that had surgery. But like the root it was unaddressed sexual trauma that was creating horrible back pain, and they fixed her back, but she still had pain. So there I worked with her for a year to like unravel that emotional trauma. And once we unraveled that emotional trauma, so it's kind of both, because I have like that high level expertise, but then I also come from a belief system that we're so much more capable to heal ourselves, and most of us have been brainwashed that we need someone else. And yes, we do, but I always like to encourage people to open up that part, because that is such an empowering tool to have, to like be able to sit and scan yourself and ask, like, creator, why am I creating this pain in my body? What is the deepest belief? What is it? Why is this pain here? Because your body is so intelligent. There is a reason, and it could be a adaptation from a past trauma, and that can be emotionally, physically, and you're outside that environment, but no one we haven't learned yet in our society to deprogram ourselves after traumas. I mean, maybe in like 100 years, when we're more organized and evolved, but what happens is that when you adapt to something, you usually stay there. And so, like a lot of women who identify as trauma survivors are not trauma survivors. They don't even realize that they're in like fight, flight. I mean, and I was doing yoga every day. I didn't realize how the depth of I just thought that that was normal for my brain to be like going like that because that's how it always had been, right? And so we sometimes don't know what we don't know until we experience something other than what we have been, and we're like, whoa, like this feels so different. And so yeah, you people can take the classes, but I do have people that are just like, I don't want to learn. I just want you to like help me fix this. I keep on having this physical issue, or like also like relationship stuff comes up because a lot of our attachment injuries are how love was given, and all of the environment that programmed our subconscious when we were little that operates with all of our adult relationships.
Mm.
And also the romantic relationships really bring out, our childhood fears, or our feeling rejected or abandoned. And in a healthy relationship, you get to resolve those. But a lot of people just, I call them, they just attract their wounds and, outside themselves. And so, like I work with people with that, and they're like, I don't want to be a healer, just you help me. But I think, I think at some level, even a small level of self-healing, like people, this is an essential skill, like for modern day life, because there's so much going on, it's, to know how to heal yourself is, even to a little degree is so, I think, just it's like almost essential because
Mm.
we're bombarded with so many things.
Yeah. I think maybe I'll just stop the recording now, and
Yeah.
then we can kind of open it up and